Hello and welcome to What Lingers, the podcast where we uncover the questions behind people's stories. I am Christian Figueroa.
And I'm Liz Melkor. Together, we're the team behind Storytelling Lisboa, where once a month, 10 storytellers get on stage in front of 200 people and share true personal stories around a theme.
It's always an incredible night, but there is a catch. We always have lingering questions for the storytellers.
In our podcast, What Lingers, we get the answers. In our third season, we jump right in and take you back to that stage. You'll hear the original story told that night.
Then, we sit down with the storyteller for a deeper conversation to explore what lingers for all of us.
Just a quick note, since these recordings are from the actual stage, the audio might be a bit raw.
Okay, so let's get into it.
If you've always been living a lie, then the opposite of that must be the truth, right? It is 2017. I'm 27 years old. A week ago, I went on a business trip with my fiancé to Singapore, but today I'm arriving home alone. We were in the midst of planning a destination wedding. It was in Spain. I had just picked out my wedding dress. It was fucking gorgeous. Vintage, very sleek, detailed, very irrelevant to the story, but I was in love with it. And in 3 days, we were supposed to sign for the house that we bought together in Rotterdam next to a park. Gorgeous. But today, I arrive home alone. And saying that, it sounds like the dude died on that trip. He didn't. Until this day, he's very much alive. I literally just checked. He just decided that life shouldn't be with me. And he dumped me on the side of the street, just outside of the airport.
What?
And I panicked. In total honesty, not that much about the dude, but about what the fuck am I gonna do now? I've lived my entire life doing what my dad wanted me to do, moved into doing what my fiance wanted me to do. And I was like, who am I? It feels like I'm living the lie. How do I go to the truth? So I made some decisions. The first one, I packed up all my feelings and emotions, put them in a little box, locked it, put it under my bed, together with the rest of my demons, because I had a feeling this experiment, what I'm gonna do, they're gonna be in the way. And the second decision I was making was, I will never, ever in my life date a Dutch dude again. And the third one was, never, ever in my life will I do what a man tells me to do. I'm gonna be more specific here. This was the moment I decided that I was gonna be a dominatrix. It started very simple. I went on some dates with a guy from Afghanistan. He was incredibly handsome, totally my type. And the dates were amazing. He was taking care of everything. He would pick me up, he would decide where we would go, what we would do, he would pay for all the bills, and he would bring me home. It was great, I loved it. And it might seem very normal for you, but for a Dutch girl, it really isn't. But there were also some questionable things. For starters, he called me his little princess. And maybe worse, after the first date, he told me he loved me. I know, I should have run. But I was young, and he was very hot. So I did what every girl does when relationships aren't the best. I was like, sure, I'll solve this with sex. I hated it. And it went in, against my third rule. Never ever doing again what a man tells me to do. It was all about him. It was all about his pleasure. So the next time I show up at his place, I know I should not have gone, but young, hot, whatever. He opens the door, he leans in, and he says, "Hey, little princess." And I say, "No. I am not your princess. Today, you are my bitch." It was safe to say that day didn't last long. I mean, when two people want to be in power, something's got to give, right? But I was hooked. I was like, this is the dream, guys. I mean, people do what I want. I don't have to feel anything. This is it. I had one little problem, though. On this stage, we've had really badass women being amazing doms. We've heard the stories. That wasn't me. I had no clue what to do. So here's what I did. I put on really black makeup, black clothes. I would always wear high heels or black boots. And I knew two things. I really liked for a man to beg. And I'm just really curious. So I like to push buttons and see what happens. And I would sometimes tie them up, leave them. And when I would be in the end be done playing, I would just disappear. Something they call ghosting these days. And yet, it is safe to say that the moment I went to therapy, that my list of apologies was fairly long. But not this summer. This summer was the dream, and I was ravishing through Rotterdam. Until I met a man, and I'm not really sure how to describe him, except that he had really good energy. I'm not sure if I knew that back then. And that British accent, honestly, thinking about it makes me a little bit wet right now. But something was off. And I was like he responds to what I'm wanting from him and what I'm doing, but I don't know, something isn't right. So I was like, okay, I really need to establish dominance here, right? So what is the worst thing that someone could ask me? And I got it. And I lift up my foot and place it on his knee and tell him to make love to my shoe. And I'm like, surely this man will never do that. Boy, was I wrong. And while this man starts caressing my shoe, I feel weird. And with feeling weird, I mainly mean I feel things. And I was like, that was not the deal. And all of a sudden, his fingers caress my ankle. And I start sobbing. And I mean, you have to get this right. I'm standing here with my foot up. This man is caressing my shoe, moaning a little. And I am standing there, makeup dripping down my face because I am fucking bawling my eyes out. And he stands up and he asks, "Can I hold you?" And that's how we spend the next hours. Until I calm down and he leads me out and he says, "I'll see you here next week. You will wear a dress, no makeup, don't be late." And my brain is like, what the fuck? And I can hear my mouth saying, "Yes, sir." And honestly, the next week when I'm finding myself in front of his door, I am questioning all my life choices. And from all the scenarios that go through my head, dropping dead is definitely not the worst one. But also, I wouldn't be me that when he opens the door, I'm very confident and I lean in. And he says, "No." What's the safe word? Do you remember it? I nod. And he says, repeat it. And then he takes off my shoes, walks me into his living room, and starts tying my hands. And I'm like, what do I pick? Dying or this? Dying or this? And I decide to repeat the safe word in my head, like a mantra. Like pineapple, pineapple. Dying or this? Pineapple, pineapple. And he continues to my torso, to my legs. And none of us speaks. It is dead quiet. The only thing you hear is the ropes and my brain going, pineapple, pineapple, dying or this, pineapple. Until he seems to be done. And everything falls quiet. And I hear someone sobbing. And I realize that this is the first time in my life that I feel held without anyone holding me. And I really don't know how long we spent like this, but at some point, he unties me, he kisses my forehead, and he says, welcome home. This is where all of you is welcome, where all of you is safe. I'll see you again next week. And we all know what my answer is. Yes, sir.
Hi again, Corrinke. Thank you so much for being here, talking a little bit more of your story. Of course, we know you from the stage in Lisbon, but for people listening at home around the world, would you please introduce yourself and share just a little bit of you?
Yes. Thank you for having me, guys. I'm so excited. My name is Corrinke. I'm a Dutchie. I have been living in Portugal for 4.5 years. And I just really love to tell stories. So I do that a lot. I tell stories, I write poetry, published my first book, like I think 3 years ago already.
What's that about? Just really quickly, tell me what's it called and what's it about?
It's called Dark and Dawn.
I have a copy.
Yes, you do. And it is about basically everything I wrote during a burnout. So it's very dark and depressing, but it ends on a high note. So it's not that bad. That's it. There's a new one coming one day. And in daily life, I help entrepreneurs with building their story under their company. And I build companies with and for people. And I'm an Olympic weightlifter, maybe wannabe Olympic weightlifter. And that's it.
I actually wanted to start with, could you just give a little bit of a brief summary of how you grew up? Because I think you grew up in a very religious and maybe closed community, and it might be a bit relevant to sort of some of the things you explore in your story.
Yes, definitely. I grew up in a very religious community indeed. I generally call it a cult. I don't know if it officially is, but it kind of like expresses on the kind of like general feel around it. I grew up there, I come from a big family. I've got like 6 brothers and sisters, but they're a lot older than me. So most of my youth was just me and my parents. And yeah, how do you describe this? I'm honestly not really sure. You can compare it to like just a lot of like rule-based stuff and very instilled on fear. We had our own church. Our school was part of the church. We weren't allowed to listen to music. We weren't allowed to do sports. We had our own internet. So like it was very like close-knit, and there was not a lot of coming in from the outside. So I had no clue what was actually happening in the world until I was 18, because then I was an adult, so I could make my own decisions and I could leave, which is what I did.
And did you go to university, and was that sort of frowned upon as not the path that you should have been doing?
I did go to university, and I think I was very lucky that my mom supported that, because that was not normal in the community that I'm from as a woman. So yeah, I have been very lucky with that. Like they always supported me studying and following a career. And that's when my world opened. There was like, whoa, this world, what is this? And also, where do I fit in here? I had no clue what was happening. I also failed my studies miserably for a few years because I was too busy doing other things. I was like, I don't know what to do here. This is it.
Were your siblings in the cult? Like, I'm in the cult. I'm sorry. I'm just like already assuming it's a cult. Did they left as well? Did they leave or?
Most of them, but they're still religious. But most of them left like where my parents are, but they're still in it.
And what's your current relationship to religion?
Oof, good question. I'm going to answer this in two. I think believing in something is really beautiful when it supports you, when it like brings you something, and it also kind of like generates a certain community. I really appreciate that. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I actually want that. The religion part makes me physically nauseous. Like, it makes me want to run as fast as possible. This is how you need to be. This is what you need to look like. This is what you need to say. This is what you need to like think. That really triggers me. And I don't think that will ever leave. I think, again, believing in something is great. Religion is the cause of a lot of shit in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. We can agree on that.
So let's now, maybe with that background in mind a little bit, let's jump into the story. And I want to jump to a specific scene that I just need a little bit more information about. You're standing outside the airport, and I want to know exactly how your fiance breaks this to you that he's done. Like the moment before everything becomes official, you buy your house together, and what your actual reaction in the moment is.
Yes. So we were flying into Amsterdam, and actually we went on a train back to Rotterdam where we lived, and we were with like a bunch of colleagues because it was a work trip and he was allowed to come with me to Singapore. We were there for like, I think a week, 1.5 weeks. And everyone left and we were walking outside to go grab a taxi. And that was the moment that he's like, actually, I'm not coming home with you. I'm going to go to my parents. We're done. That was literally what it was. And I was like, I just froze. I was like, what the fuck is happening here?
That was very Dutch of him. Like, very.
It was very Dutch of him.
Had there been any signs? I mean, you guys had just been on a huge airplane flight together. Had he been, were you like, oh, something's going on with him? Or was this really just out of the blue, a decisive break?
It wasn't that out of the blue. So this was in June. We had bought the house in December already, but we had to wait before we would actually get the keys and stuff. And in that time, he was already like, hey, I'm having some doubts. And I was like, no shit, Sherlock. We like got engaged. We're planning a wedding. We're buying a house. Pretty normal. But do you want to talk about it? And he was like, no, I think it's also very normal. As soon as it gets serious, we will talk about it. Well, that never happened. And he really wanted to go on that trip. He had already spent nights that he wasn't sleeping in my bedroom and stuff like that. We weren't sitting together on the flight back. It wasn't great, but not as like, this is it, no conversation, just like, hey, I'm out, bye. Obviously, we had that after, but not in that moment. Yeah, it was a shock. It was a shock. I'm not sure. I think also for me, it was so much my life, as I also tell in the story. I was basically living for him. I was just doing whatever he wanted. I knew it wasn't great, but I kind of closed my eyes for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you weren't in touch with your own agency yet, sort of.
Not at all. I didn't even know what that meant, I would say.
And so then this intense moment, rupture, becomes a catalyst for your exploration. Well, I guess date a little bit. There's some other guys. And then you decide to go on this path to be a dominatrix. And also, I want to say, please correct me on language around this stuff because I'm not completely sure. And I do want to get the terms right and understand the terms.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So how does one logistically, I'm always into logistics. Logistically, how does one become a dominatrix? If I decide I want to become a dominatrix, how do you find partners? How did you find your partners?
So honestly, if you would actually want to become a dominatrix, I would do nothing what I did, because this is part of the big shame I have around this story and why I wanted to tell it, to release part of that. I had no clue what I was doing. I was doing it for all the wrong reasons.
What are the wrong reasons?
I just hated men. If there's now men that claim that they're a dom, basically because they want to beat the shit out of you, like, run. Let's all run. But I was doing the same thing. And that's part of the shame. And I have been in contact with some people afterwards, and I'm very grateful that nothing traumatic happened, because it could have, because I was just making shit up. Anyway, I can still answer your question, but I think that's a really important thing. I wasn't really a dominatrix. I was just someone who thought I was and loved that. But I was just like, I will just never, ever in my life do what a man tells me to do. Can I see if I can make them do what I want and humiliate them, hurt them? And so I don't have to feel anything. That was my main goal. And it was also partly because the relationship with my ex was not great on many different levels, including sexual level. And so the story was also that came out was like that we didn't last was like because I didn't like sex, which was true. I really didn't. And I was also here to really prove myself on like, no, fuck that. Of course I like it. I just don't like to feel things. So how can I arrange that? And so to answer your question, how I find partners, I was just on the dating apps. And I think what happened is you kind of know the people who are into when you're bossy. And you figure it out quite quickly. If you are super assertive in messaging, and then when you meet up, you just feel how people respond to it. And yeah, that's kind of how it happens. It's the same as like you will find the best kinky people, dom people on like the most vanilla dating apps. And that's quite easy.
When you say you didn't want it to feel, what exactly do you mean? You said in your story, I put everything on a box under the bed with all of my demons. Because I know when we are in that state of shock, it's really difficult to recognize what we are going through. But probably with time, we go back and we'll see like, oh, I was feeling abandoned or whatever. Do you know, or can you tell like what was that part that you were trying to hide under this layer of sex, dominatrix, and I don't know, dates, or making people suffer?
Yeah.
Like a little revenge thingy.
Little. Yes. I think there's several things, because I was always living for my ex. And I say this in the story as well. Like I went from living to earn my dad's love to living to earn my ex's love, right? And I never felt really seen. So I never felt like that I could be myself, but I also didn't really know who I was. And because I didn't really feel the courage to figure that out, I was kind of like, you know what, I'm just going to be the opposite of that. And I think that is part of it, because then if people would see me as like, in this case, a dominatrix, and would reject me, I would never be rejected because it's not really me, you know? And I think another part of that is I grew up in a place where women weren't really allowed to be seen. Like we had to be super feminine. We're not allowed to cut our hair. We always had to wear skirts. We had to be seen as super feminine, but we were not allowed to be seen or heard. And if something would happen, like in a sexual way, it was always our fault because we were a tease, stuff like that. So for me, it was really hard to step into the world of what we just talked about. Like, hey, I'm coming in the actual world. And then as a woman, all of a sudden you have to be sexy and attractive and you have to be seen. And I wanted that. But at the same time, everything inside me was screaming, no, you cannot be that, because if people see you like that, scary things can happen. And I was really afraid of that. Like, I was really afraid of that. So I didn't want to have that feeling inside. So I was like, if I have the power, nothing scary will ever happen to me. Like, I will make the scary shit happen, and you will suffer. I am the boss here. I am going to be in charge. So it was these kind of feelings, plus I was never going to be attached, obviously. Like,
Yeah. It was emotionally, you were completely emotionally out of the game. I mean, you were ghosting. You were the ghoster.
oh yeah. Yeah. I hate to say this. It's really not of the best parts of my life. But yeah, I was. Yeah.
It is really interesting to me because you grew up being Dutch. I dated a Dutch guy for a while. Well, you also mentioned like I was just a Dutch girl, but I'm really curious because you mentioned in your story that this guy from Afghanistan were calling you a little princess, but you were such a Dutch girl. So what does it mean?
People ask me this question really often, which is interesting, and it's hard to answer because it's more of a feeling
Okay.
than how I have experienced it and still experience it when I'm in the Netherlands. Is we're tough. We're direct. We like really harsh jokes. The darker, the better. Our focus is to have everything in these setups. We work, we have a career, we save money, we go on cool holidays, but basically we have no real time to be in community, to take care of each other, to have actual loving relationships. And that's also how it is in dating. I haven't dated Dutch people for a long time, but I have Dutch friends. So I see sometimes what happens is everyone needs to hold the power, and it's very transactional. It's very, look how cool I am. Look how much money I have. This is the house I live in. It's very performative and emotionally kind of like shut off. And again, thank the Lord, there's exceptions.
Sounds a little bit of exhausting.
It is wildly exhausting, and it feels very fake. For me, I know that I changed a lot, but I have zero patience for that bullshit. Like, tell me who you are. What's real here? Instead of your house and your career and your payment check and the fancy restaurant that you want to go to. Like, just let's go for a picnic in the park.
I just find that tension interesting, though, that the Dutch people are known for being so direct, but then also you feel that they're hiding a lot, right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
Yes. I don't think people really realize that. I think people think they're very open in directness and everything. But I think there's a lot of like emotions and feelings and actual needs and values that are so deep underneath all of that, that they're almost like subconscious.
Yeah. So I guess it makes sense, I think, in a way then that you're trying to manage figuring out your role in the world, right, in your 20s, and you're not really wanting to feel your deep pain or your deep emotions because that's not modeled for you by your family or by your culture. But let's go to that period of time when you're being, as you say, a not good dominatrix. And before we get to the point, because towards the end of the story, I think we get to a point where you do get in touch through this dominatrix exploration with feeling. But before you get to that feeling, when you're feeling that power, can you explain that more for me? What does it feel like? And is it sexually gratifying for you? Or is it more just like, I don't know, control? Like, what is it?
Good question. I like it. It's this feeling of, back then, I don't think I could even have that feeling anymore. But it's this feeling of like, I'm a really bad bitch and no one can make me anything. Like, I could make people do anything I wanted. And I had never had that feeling. It felt so powerful that I was almost scared of how much power can a person have. And again, as not a great dominatrix, I wasn't going into what people I was building things with needed, right? Which is like in the normal world, that is what doms go into. I didn't do that. I wasn't even thinking about that. And yeah, so it was this like really powerful feeling of like, I can make people do anything I want. And for me, like saying this it's kind of how I have always been on the other side in church, in family, and I had no voice. Like even if I would speak up, I would be instantly like, no, that's not happening. So it felt really good to be on the other side of the coin, basically.
For once at least, right?
Exactly. And that I didn't have to feel sad and everything like that. And that people loved doing what I wanted. I was like, wow, that is insane. But to answer the other part of your question, if this was sexually gratifying, wow, I don't know what that word is.
Gratifying.
Gratifying, thank you. No, it really wasn't. And it wasn't really about that for me. Like I felt in a way, I felt like a queen, a goddess, whatever, because people were attracted to me and all that, but I couldn't really feel it because I had shut that part off. And because I had shut all my feelings off, of course, there was no actual pleasure in it. I've told this in one of my other stories, but since my ex, I didn't have an orgasm for like 8 years being with a partner. So no, there was no real pleasure in it. It was really more a devilish kind of like, let me show who's boss kind of thing.
And you mentioned something about, of course, doing things to these people like ghosting. And then you said you started going to therapy. And then you have this long list of apologies. And when in astrology, when you are turning 27 to 28 until you're 30, you have like the return of Saturn or any planet. And it's this big transitional moment of your life when you kind of questions everything around yourself in your life. And I'm wondering, when was this wake up moment that you went like, I need to talk about this with someone, like a professional or a therapist?
So that came way later. I had stopped doing this. So this was actually quite a short period of my life. So we broke up in the beginning of June. So this happened summer and a bit of autumn. And then I actually moved to Morocco in, I think, January. So yeah, very different, which was the other opposite again. I mean, I don't think I could have pulled off there what I did in the Netherlands. So I had already stopped. I lost the fun in it. I was like, this is not great. Plus, as you know, at the end of my story, I met this English dude who really changed it. And then I all of a sudden had a lot of feelings and emotions. And I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do with this. So then I stopped it. So I moved to Morocco. And that was for me when my real freedom started, because I was really out of the Netherlands, out of like the sight of everyone I knew. For the first time, I had a big girl gang in Morocco, and I loved it. It felt so free. It was a time of my life. Also really kind of met myself there because I spent a lot of time alone, but nothing really changed yet. I think that only came when I moved to Portugal during COVID. I had a new job, new country, had to build a new community, and I was so full on that at some point I got a burnout. And we figured out that I was disconnected from all my feelings and emotions. And I had to literally relearn how to feel things. And from that moment on, I started going into everything that happened in the past and who I want to be as a person and all of that. And then this, to be honest, this wasn't a real big part of actual therapy. It was more like, because I've never really talked with anyone about this because I am ashamed about it. So I processed most of this by myself. But yeah, did take action on it as well. Like people that I really felt bad to like, hey, can I find them? Can I send them a message to check in and say sorry?
Oh my God, listening to you, it made me it reminds me of when I first left Colombia to Brazil, and it's nothing like a good change of complete context, people, and just be on your own to kind of know and get to know yourself, right? So that sounds amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to the Englishman.
Yes, please.
Can we give him like a fake name? Just like,
Can we call him Peter?
yes. Okay, let's call him Peter. All right, so you meet Peter, and Peter is what changes you from this hardened dominatrix who's just playing with control into somebody where the control meets feeling. And in the story, you have this moment with you put his, I think it's like you put your shoe on his knee. I think it's on his knee.
Yes.
And you talk about having this idea like, what's the worst thing ever? And so basically, the way that I'm interpreting it, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're literally trying to be like, how can I sort of inflict pain? Like, what's the way that I can feel the most control because I'm going to ask him to do the worst thing ever? And you do it, and then he, with joy, makes love to your shoe. And then you find yourself overwhelmed with emotion and sobbing. Slow me down right here. And if you can, put words to why you were crying so much and and if that crying was connected with his feelings, like what was going on?
Yes. It's funny because I'm getting this same kind of feeling again inside that I had then.
Describe it.
It's this like half anxiety, half, whew, this is scary. I don't know what to do here. Should I be here? So this man with a beautiful English accent, as we like it, there was just something in his energy, like he was in this world, right? So he knew this didn't end up. Like it just like it, something didn't match.
Sorry, so you mean in this world, he was part of the BDSM community. This was something that he had practiced and he understood the rules and what it should be.
Yes. Yes. I didn't know that beforehand. Like I only knew that afterwards. But I could feel in his energy that he was doing what I wanted, but something just felt off. And so I didn't feel that normal power that I had of like, this is it. He has to do anything I want. And that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to make him do the worst thing I can imagine. And for me, like, it was very uncreative if I think about it now. But back then I was like, this is the worst thing that I could imagine. Like, can you imagine? It was autumn and it was dirty shoes. It's the Netherlands, right? It's not very clean. And I was like, isn't that the most degrading thing you can do, to make love to someone's shoes? So I was really proud of myself. I'm like, wow, I'm thinking of this. He will never do this. He will break or like cut down. And like, but he did. Like, and like, as I told you guys, like happily. And the special part about that and why it really touched me is there was so much love in it, which I wasn't used to that. There was so much like love in it. And then at some point he just caressed my ankle, and that was skin, right? That was not my shoe. And that was the moment that I was like, I haven't been touched like that for a long time. I don't touch myself like that. I think it was a lot in energy and less in actual actions. But this man is like really bringing this love and good energy in here, and then caressing my ankle like very softly, like someone touches me like that. And that really made me break down, which was obviously the opposite of what I wanted. But it had been, honestly, I wanted to say months of like, no one has touched me like that. But I think it was actually years, if that even ever happened.
I'm listening to you and I'm wondering if maybe in some ways the difference was that with these other men, you guys had just both been playing your separate roles or whatever. Like you'd been doing your control thing and they'd been responding. But maybe with Peter, he was actually responding to you. Like it was more in an actual connection instead of two people just sort of side by side doing their thing. Like And also, you were fully accepted in the moment where you felt like you were exerting the most control. And that was probably something you've never experienced in your non-sexual life. Because, right, I mean, I don't know.
Yes. No, I love this. Yes, I do. I love this. I didn't make that connection myself yet. I think this might be true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're picturing yourself at your worst, and then this person is like, I accept you as you are, even in your worst. So maybe there's something there that triggers something. Oh my God, your face, if people can watch this on YouTube, is like shining, and like an insight is coming from heaven.
Thank you. Liz, you're my heaven.
I accept. No, I'm just kidding.
I legit think this really rings true. Realize that. I thought it was more about like the love that he gave me that I hadn't experienced or wasn't able to give myself. But I think, that it's also like that he really saw me, which is a big topic for me in my life. So that's really cool.
Saw and was willing to stay connected and was willing to accept. And I mean, that's then what happens, right? That he asks to hold you, right? After you start sobbing, and then you lay there. And to me, that moment was just, it was intense and strong. And then he flips it. So you leave, and as you leave, he changes the role and he says, you're going to wear this. You're going to come next week. You're going to do this. And so he assumes the full control role. The way that you tell it's interesting because you don't say like, oh, I was totally into it. And I said, yes. It's like you're kind of stunned and you just hear your voice like saying yes to him. And then we get to the next scene, which is you going back and you being tied up. And maybe we can go more slowly into whatever emotions were going on for you then as well.
Yes. You know, when you're really, really scared about something and you have no clue what's going to happen, but there's this thing inside and you're like, there's something for me here. Back then I couldn't put that into words, but I knew that I had to go because I had never felt this feeling before. And I really trusted him for some reason. I mean, I know the reason because he held me, but also before that, he asked me if he could help me. Like, and that was a big thing for me. And then finally, when I left, he told me what to do. But again, it's like, was in a very dominant, but very loving way, you know? And I was like, yes, of course I want to do that. Plus, it was an interesting thing. Like he wanted me to wear a dress, which back in those days, I kind of didn't do because that was like what I had to do in my youth. And like I was only wearing very masculine clothes most of the time. Like definitely no skirts or dresses. It was just jeans and dark, not very colorful.
How I dress.
Yeah, but if you see me, like you guys see me now, like I love colors. I love dresses and skirts and it makes me feel good. But back then I didn't have that. And he said that. Plus I was wearing so much makeup in my 20s. And he was like, no makeup. And I couldn't really rationalize all of that, but there was just something in there of like, I could really put all my masks off. I could really go back to the basics again. And again, this is all from like later on journaling and stuff. So I could just only feel back then like there's something there. I was so scared. What I also said in the story, I showed up, obviously perfectly on time, both as a Dutch person and was like, I don't know what's going to happen if I don't do everything perfectly. And I was shaking. Like, I was like, many times when I was like standing there, I was like, I'm not going to go. I'm going to die. Plus, I didn't dare to tell anyone what I was doing or where I was going because no one knew about this. This was one of my big secrets. So if something would happen, no one would know where I was. And then what I normally do when I'm uncomfortable, I get super dominant and I'm like, I'm here. You don't tell me anything. And that's what I try to do when he opened the door, right? But everything inside me was just like a puddle. That was just like, I don't know what to do here. Yeah.
He ties you up.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
Yeah, in some ways it is, right? I mean, it's a stranger. Actually, is he older than you? Give me a little bit of information about Peter.
He was quite a bit older than me. So I was like 27. He was definitely end of his 30s. I don't know exact age, but end of his 30s. Expat living in Rotterdam. I forgot the question that you asked aside from that.
Well, did you talk to him about life? Did you talk to him about, your hopes, dreams and stuff like this? Or was it very just sex?
It wasn't sex, actually. It was, we did have conversations, but more about safety, about things I felt in those moments. I also didn't see him for very long. It wasn't really something like that. We didn't have a connection like that. I think he was just in my life to open this door for me. But yeah, he was very professional. He was a rigger and he was very good in having the safety chat and stuff. And in hindsight, when we had the safety chat, when I was still like, hey, I am your dom, I think thinking back about it, he was actually leading that conversation. He actually taught me a lot about the things that you should discuss. But he did it in a way that back then I didn't really notice that. He definitely knew that I was putting up a show. And yeah, so we did talk a little bit about that, but it was really more about like the tying, and for me to have a place where I could feel safe and feel seen in a way. Although back then I didn't even really know what there was to be seen, but I still felt it.
Yeah.
Which was incredible.
And I'm wondering a little bit like, how are you now? I mean, from your story, from what you shared today, we can understand that you kind of ended up in this dominatrix fetish world kind of by accident, by revenge, by all these moments. And instead of like probably an inner curiosity about your own sexuality. And is this still something present, something that you think about it? Or like, have you explored other fetishes? Because I think in my case, like as I grew older and I got more confident with myself and with my body and with my relationships, kind of open a new space for trying new things and being curious. But because this is a specific thing for me, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't come to you in a way of me exploring my sexuality, but it was just like a coping mechanism for the whole situation that was happening with your ex. So it kind of makes sense that it didn't last, right?
Yes. So after Peter, I fully stepped out. Like, I had no clue what to do with this. I was like, okay, that's great, but also very scary. And I feel things, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to. Like, with him, that was great. It was interesting. And I was like, whew. But after that, I didn't. Actually, I've only been back into this space and exploration since about a year, I would say. Where now it is definitely an exploration of me, my sexuality, definitely on the dominatrix end of the spectrum. And I think it's so interesting because there's such a big connection between working through things. I don't know if you're familiar with the IFS therapy.
Maybe you can explain it just quickly for our audience. It's what is it? Family systems or something?
Internal family systems. It's basically like, hey, you have all these parts inside and they all have a different role and they're all here for you. And in the end, there is no bad parts. And you can interact with all of them and they give you information, and there's just a befriending of like, instead of like, hey, I'm anxious. We don't like that. Like, hey, a part of me is anxious. That's interesting. What are you here to tell me? And is there something like next to it? And how is that connected? Like that all those parts. And it is very related to kink, to BDSM and all of that. And I'm definitely in an exploration phase in that. And it's very interesting on seeing how that also evolves, right? Like you start in a certain way. For me, it was a big thing of being a good girl, being affirmed in that. And over the time, that has definitely evolved in like, you know what? I'm still being seen and loved when I do everything that people don't like. So that still people don't give up on me. And you can definitely relate that back to how I grew up, because back then I did everything wrong and the love was very conditional. And so all these kind of things, plus I know for me, the way of fully surrendering, where it's in scenes or it's in shibari, which is also just like a freaking gorgeous.
Yeah, let me just quickly ask you two questions, because that's a vocabulary word that I just want like explained a bit, because I actually don't think I've heard it. You said scenes, and then shibari, maybe you can explain as well.
Yes. Scenes I would describe as if you're interacting with someone and it is in the kink space, in the BDSM space, you kind of play something out. And you call that a scene, with a lot of communication beforehand and afterwards on what are your desires, where are your boundaries, where's your gray zones, etc. And then the actual act, you call a scene. Shibari is this Japanese art of rope tying, which for me is not a sexual thing at all, or at least not at the moment. Might be one day, you never know. But it's where people tie and people are being tied up. And that for me, like, it's just rope, right? But it's such an energy play where as soon as that happens, there's only one place I can be, and that is in my body. Like, there's no other place to be. And it's just this really surrendering to feelings, to emotions, to the person you're tying with, to everything around that. It is a very challenging place for me, but it is also incredible. Like, it's everything. Like, there's just so much going on that there's really cool places in Lisbon and Porto where there's workshops and shows and where you can practice. And it's literally something I do with friends, which is really fun.
Is there something about like being completely constrained and then somehow finding freedom in that, or is that it a bit?
It's definitely part of it. It's also, there's just emotions coming up that you didn't know before. It's also like, I am not in control about the positions that I am in. And like, there's nothing performative there. Like, you can't. The person who ties you, which you call a rigger, he will put you, or in my case, most of the time, he, in certain positions that I'm like, wow, this is not flattering. I do not like this. Look at my belly, how it is like this. And at some point, he put his hand on my belly, and I was like, I don't like this. But also at the same time, it was very healing. And I talked about it afterwards with him, and he just had the feeling to do that. It's so like intuitive energy, which is beautiful. And I think around all of this for me is to fully feel like a woman and being seen in that, which was never allowed, is incredible. And because there's nothing else, there's just like, it just all comes down to that. And I don't have the space to think of like, what's going to happen? Can I do that? Or what are they seeing? What does this mean? What is going to be the next thing? Like, all that noise just stops.
Like a way of getting to like a Buddha moment in a way. It's like forced acceptance.
A very slutty Buddha moment, but yeah.
Slutty Buddha moment. But like forced acceptance, forced presence, forced discomfort, and just
surrendering.
Yeah, and it's intriguing, I will say, in fact. Okay, but I think this might be a good time for us to come to an end, even though, again, like, yeah, I could keep going on many questions. But we do have a final question for you.
Can I say one thing about this?
Yes.
Like, I really believe in all of this as like, it's healing, it's beautiful. It's also just really fun. And I think that is very important to mention. Like, it's also just really fun.
I'm a big fan. As I get older, the more and more I'm just like, okay, like how can I find out how to play? Like, no, we don't need deep hidden meaning in it. Like when do I feel like I'm playing? Just like I'm a kid, you know?
Yes, I love that.
But our final question for you today is, how has it been for you to revisit your story today?
Oof, I don't like revisiting stories. I'm like, I should have done that better. Also, on purpose, I listened to it and didn't watch it because then I'm like, I want to get better at body language and like really staying in moments. And the shame came back up. And that was interesting. I was like, oh my goodness, like, especially since I'm like in this world, I was like, this is horrible. Maybe they will kick me out. Maybe they will be like, you are never welcome here again, if this is what you did. And then at the same time, I think the stage is such a good place to talk about anything and also to release that shame because we're human and we do shit. And I think many people have said this is you tell stories from the scar and not the wound. And it's such a beautiful place to be to do that and to like, okay, I did this. I'm not proud. I have worked on it. I made my peace with it. And here it is. This is me and all my humanness. And that also makes you feel seen, right? It's great. So in that sense, I love it.
That's it for this episode of What Lingers.
If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It really helps us reach more listeners. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, we'd love for you to share this episode with them.
What Lingers is a podcast from the team behind Storytelling Lisboa and is produced by both Liz and I and edited by Liz.
We're a small project and your support truly motivates us to keep going.
Would also love to hear from you. Feel free to send us a DM or even a voice note with your thoughts, your comments, or questions to our Instagram @WhatLingersPod.
Don't forget to subscribe and follow us so you never miss what lingers next.
Bye!
Bye!